This is number 16. It says an airplane that is flying in the sky is 20,000 feet away from the landing strip. The current angle of depression from the airplane to the landing strip is 20 degrees. We're trying to find the altitude of the airplane to the nearest foot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw a little picture here. Alright, there's my airplane. And then down here is where that landing strip is. Okay, and it says the airplane is flying in the sky, and this airplane is a total distance of 20,000 feet away from the landing strip. Okay, the current angle of depression. Now, when we have an angle of depression, okay, basically what you're getting here is this is a 90-degree angle, and I'm sorry it kind of went down a little bit, but the angle of depression takes that line and it depresses down, it pushes it down. So this angle right here is 20 degrees. You could also, just showing you here, make a right triangle by going this way here, because basically your angle depression stays the same. But if you're wanting to put your right triangle on this side, that's fine. But what you would need to do is find out what this angle is. The way you would do is this makes a right angle, so 90 minus 20 would have made this 70 degrees here if you're using this as the right triangle. So I'm going to actually go ahead and show you that I'm going to use that as my right triangle. So here's my 70 degrees, and I've got my 20,000 feet. And what it's asking for is what is the altitude of this airplane? The altitude would be the distance this airplane is in terms of height. So our height is what we're trying to solve for. Again, we could have put the right triangle over here, and it just, because it's a rectangle, it would be with the x over here, our information would be a little bit different because the location of x would be a different location. And so what we're going to work with is this right triangle here. I'm going to pull it off now so that we're not distracted by the drawing. There's my right angle. This is 70 degrees. This is 20,000 feet. Oops. And this is what I'm trying to find, is the altitude. Now, let's look at the information we have. Right across from here is the opposite side. We don't have information for that. The one that's next to this angle is known as the adjacent side. And across from the 90-degree angle, that's known as our hypotenuse. So we have information for the adjacent and hypotenuse. So let's go back to SOHCAHTOA. And we have enough information for the adjacent and the hypotenuse, so that means we're using this cosine this time. So you're going to write the word cosine. Always after this word, always, is going to be the angle measure you're working with. The angle we're working with is 70 degrees. So the cosine of 70 degrees is going to equal the adjacent side, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 20,000. Now we're trying to solve for x here, and this says x divided by 20,000. Well, the opposite of division is multiplication, so if I multiply both sides here by 20,000, what that gives me is 20,000 cosine of 70 is going to equal my value of x. Pick up your calculator, and in your calculator here, get out of this, we want to put in 20,000 cosine of 70, and that gets me x equals 6,840, and it says to the nearest foot, so we're going to leave that as to the nearest foot. So that means that this plane is probably landing right now, which is answer choice B.